And so sometimes understanding family dynamics become critical for making sure, A, we're not replicating those family dynamics, and whether I can get the family to think about it or not, I want to make sure that I understand what's going on there. Now, I've had incredible luck with asking families if the family admits there's a problem at home. Now, you'll get some families who will say, don't have a problem at home. Now, what do we say as teachers, most of us as teachers, when a family says that? Sure, right, okay? The reality is that sometimes the family has no problem at home because the family system has so attuned itself that we don't do, I keep wanting to pick on you, Olivia. Okay, Rachel?
Faye.
Okay, Faye, okay. The reason that Faye doesn't have any problems at home is because the family lives in such a very delicate ballet as to no situation will ever occur that would make Faye have a meltdown. And as a family member, I don't even know I'm doing this anymore. It has become so much a part of how we live our life that I can't consciously say, oh yeah, you're right, I'm not doing anything that would create a problem. But I am. That's what's going on. And so when I say we don't have a problem at home, I'm not lying. We don't have a problem at home. Now it comes at an incredible cost, but I'm not even aware of the cost anymore.
Or they just have really different expectations.
Yeah. I went into one family one time, and the kid it was a young boy who was on the spectrum, but he would just dismantle stuff. Well, I went into the home, and literally you could just see where things had been just moved up the wall. And so there was nothing in this kid's reach, and so he could do whatever he wanted to around that house. He couldn't get to anything. They had just, contextually made this not a problem, all right? There was one couch he could jump on, and everything else was kind of gone, and all those shelves were high. And I've asked parents to audio tape and videotape themselves. Audio tape's usually much more something they're willing to do. And so if we say there's a problem, for example, I was mentioning to a couple of you, Indiana, for some reason, last couple of months ago, decided that they didn't have any money to pay for residential care for a huge portion of their residentially care population. And so they dumped them back into the regular public schools, just like next week. So all of a sudden you've got kids with autism who are 19, 20 years old who are going home and literally beating the hell out of their parents, very aggressive in the schools, and the school's going, we don't know what to do with this kid. And the parents are going, if my child needed residential care before, they still need residential care. Somebody's got to pay for this, and the school is saying, we don't have any money to pay for residential care. We'll never have money to pay for residential care. And we are scrambling trying to figure out what we're going to do. Now, in some cases, part of what we're doing is that, okay, because the child may not have had a pattern of being aggressive in the residential center because things could be so structured there. Homes aren't structured places. And so one thing that I've got a number of families doing, let's audio tape, let's videotape if we can, the interaction. So if we know bedtime is a disaster, if we know morning preparation is a disaster, get a 120-minute tape, put that sucker in, put it up on a shelf, and just start it recording before the thing happens, and just let stuff go the way it normally goes. Let's bring that tape in, let's review that tape, let's listen to the way you're talking to one another. Because in some cases it's too much language, and less is actually more. It's the tone of voice. All of a sudden you can tell mom starts getting exasperated, and as that starts to show you can just hear the kid's anxiety build. But we begin to, because we can't be in that house necessarily, but we can begin to do some things to actually get a picture of what might be some of the dynamics. It also, with the second thing that we've gotten is that an awful lot of teachers have become much better, because I can see you losing your cool as the mom when I'm listening to the tape. And all of a sudden it becomes, and you know what, you kind of do the same thing in the classroom. When he starts to do this, your voice level starts to raise. Oh, that's the same thing we're seeing. Maybe not to the same extent, but that's exactly what we're talking about here that we've got to do something about in this plan. Okay.
We had, a couple months ago, we had a whole session on coaching other teachers, and you talked about in the very beginning of, an FBA changing the...
Why don't you stand up and talk really loud?
Thank you. In the beginning of today, you talked a little bit about the FBA, including some behavior changes for adults and teachers. What do you recommend, recommend for us to encourage teachers to change their behaviors, especially when they're resistant?
That's what we've got to do the next time. You know, literally, that's what we've got to do this time. I think one of the, for me, and those of you that have been in some of the sessions that I've done before, I think one time I brought in a, actually hang on here, let me see if I, let me bounce out of this slide and find something else real fast. Some of you have seen this. We've talked about this before. When I collect data in classrooms, I try to collect data that to a certain extent kind of draws a picture or makes it very clear kind of what's going on, so that I'm not just going in and saying, I'm going to give you some summary of what I've seen. I want to sit down with a teacher and see, is there a way we can kind of go through this for them to get a picture of what they're doing. So for example, this is a young man, let's say that I have a problem, say a child with ADHD who talks out a lot. Anybody have that problem? Okay. The first time the child talks out, what does the teacher do? Whatever they do, I'll put a 1. And then write down that's what they did. Next time the student talks out, what did the teacher do? If it's the same behavior, a 1 again. If it's a different behavior, now it's a 2, and 2 equals whatever that behavior is. And I go through and just kind of watch how many times the kid talks out, and what does the teacher do? All right, so in this case, the first time the student talked out, what did the teacher do? You have a verbal reprimand. You need to raise your hand. Next time the student talked out, what's rule 4? Okay, we'll pick on you. Rollin, okay. Next time Rollin talks out, what did the teacher do? No, now we're the third one. All right, I don't know if the teacher didn't see it or they plan to ignore it. I'm not going to deal with Rollin because I'm trying to teach history right now. But the teacher didn't do anything. Next time Rollin talked out, reprimand. Next time Rollin talked out, what's for lunch? Pizza. Okay, do we ever do that? Do we ever answer these questions? Or maybe the kid hollers out the answer to the question. We go, yes, Rollin, that's right. The Vikings were the first people that came to the New World. Okay. Reprimand, reprimand, nothing. Reprimand, positive, positive. Reprimand, nothing. What's going on here? Inconsistent. All right, and I know we've played this before. It's even worse than inconsistent. I am actually doing what? I am intermittently reinforcing behavior. All right. When I intermittently reinforce behavior, what do I do to that behavior?
Strengthen it.
I strengthen it. I don't just increase it. I strengthen it. All right. In essence, and we are seeing parents who are doing this. They're hiring their own behavior specialists to come in. And so you were talking about a student you didn't think, you had a student you don't think needs to be in your classroom. And you're saying, I think this kid needs to be out. I bring in my behavior specialist, and what we see is this. What am I likely to say? You're strengthening the behavior that you say is this kid's problem behavior. Of course he's not going to stop doing this. Not only has this not been an effective intervention plan, you've actually made my child worse. And we are getting parents who are asking for compensatory education. I want another year because this year certainly didn't help. Okay? Now, is this pretty common? Absolutely. My gut level is that if you go back into anybody's classroom, I don't care, your own classroom, watch what you do. Most of us are slot machines. We pay off every now and then. Okay? Now, fortunately, for most kids, it's not a big deal. For some kids, it's a big deal. But what I've got to do is get the teacher to see this. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist when I sit this down to all of a sudden realize, shit, not being very consistent. Okay? And we can talk about it, and part of the issue is I'm not going to try to convince you. You're seeing it here. Let's talk about that. And you know what? You're lucky because most of us do this for all kids. But you know what? For Rollin, this is a big issue. We have got to be clearer here with this kid. We go in and we draw the classroom out. And again, I know we've shown this before, and I hate to repeat, but we'll talk about it. I like to draw the classroom out just because I think sometimes just looking at the context. It is amazing how many times, here's my kid with ADHD, and here's the hamster cage. Right? Now, it may have taken the kid all year to get over there. All right? He's kept, right? But he's there. There's the hamster cage. Okay? We then actually break each student's desk down into 5 boxes, 5 little boxes. And those of you who have been coming to this thing, somewhere in your folder back there, you've got a thing called the BEAST, which is the Behavioral and Environmental Assessment of Students and Teachers, which has this stuff in it. But I'll sit down and I'm watching the class. Now, all I have to do is watch who the teacher delivers the opportunity to. So I might come over and say, can somebody give me, Faye? How did I get something weird out of that?
You said the last thing.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's not okay. Can you give me one cause for the start of the Civil War? One cause for the start of the Civil War, Faye.
Now you totally put me on the spot, and I'm really bad at it. Slavery.
Is your name Faye? Is your name Faye? Stand up. Stand up. What are you doing talking? Was anyone talking to you? Is this funny to you, young lady? Wipe that smile off your face. Okay. Now, Faye just got an opportunity to respond, okay? And if I was marking in her little, let's say this is her desk, I'd have said she got one opportunity to respond. She gave a correct answer, even though she was prompted by her neighbor, all right? So I might have said, so I might have given a verbal praise if I'd have praised her. What's your first name? Monica. What did Monica get? Yeah, Monica would have gotten in her little desk, thing, she'd have gotten a verbal reprimand for behavior. And I simply mark down what goes on. And I'll watch for about 20 minutes. Now, my experience has been that teachers love this data, as long as you're not their evaluator. Okay? You can't be their boss, you can be their boss and do this, but it has a whole different purpose then, okay? But if you are a colleague, if you are just someone coming in, I'm just giving you feedback, because we cannot watch ourselves teach. We are in this pond of alligators, they're nipping at our butt, and we're trying to get through the course of the day, and I cannot watch myself teach. And all of a sudden we get done here. Do you think you will have some students whose desks look like this after 20 minutes? Yeah, they got absolutely nothing. Okay? This provides a visual picture. I set this down, the person looks at it and kind of goes, shit, look at all those empty desks. That's not going to be good. Right? Then you've got Russell. All right? Russell got 14 opportunities to respond. Okay? 14 opportunities to respond. Or I'm sorry, no, this is Rob. We'll say this is Russell. 14 opportunities to respond. Was wrong twice, right? Academic correction 2 times. Lots of praise for academics. A few praises for behavior. A couple of reprimands. Is that all right? Yeah, that kid looks pretty good, right? And then you've got Randy. Randy got 3 opportunities to respond. How many times was he wrong? At least 2. How many of you think a kid would keep trying if they were only correct 33% of the time? Okay. He got 12 reprimands. Now I watched for 20 minutes. He got 12 reprimands. You think this is rare? It really isn't. It is not unusual for one child in the classroom to get over half the reprimand of the entire class. All right? When you set this down with a teacher and they look at this chart where you've got it all drawn out, their eyes get drawn to certain things. They'll look at Randy's desk and go, crap, look at all that reprimand. All right? They will quickly scan because we want to be competent. What it provides is a picture. So part of what I try to do is to develop data that literally the teacher can interpret. And we're going to sit down, and I am not going to play shell answer man. I was the collector of this. Let's talk about what this means. Now, what you'll oftentimes see in a classroom, for example, is that boys will get far more opportunities to respond than girls will. And teachers might say, you're damn right, because if I don't keep them with me, they take the class and go south. All right? I've got to keep those boys involved. All right? But they may not be aware that this kid is getting way more than their share of reprimand. If I just look at this, let's just talk about this as one piece of data you might have in a functional assessment. What does this tell me about Randy? Just this one little piece. What might be a function for his behavior? Attention. Why would you think that? Because he's getting a whole bunch of it. He's getting attention at least once every 2 minutes for some inappropriate behavior. That's a lot of effort going into that behavior. Okay? What else do we notice there?
No praise.
He's getting no attention for anything that's desirable, is he? Okay? How about academics? Not much making him look competent. Is there any reason that old Randy here ought to be going, God, I love school? This is the best thing since sliced bread.
3 o'clock.
Okay, I like the end of this. Now, we do, and the thing is that if you watch this, if you came in tomorrow and took data, what do you think you'd see for Randy tomorrow? And the next day? And the next day? And the next year? And then in 6th grade we go, you know what, Randy won't even try. No, we pretty much beat that out of him about 4th grade. Okay? Now my issue becomes one of just even like looking at this kind of thing, what do I have to do? Just from this one little piece of data, what might this tell me I might have to start thinking about having somebody do?
Something he's doing right.
All right? I've got to give him some praise. I've got to get some marks down in this box. So I come over here and I say, Terrell, I know Randy's a real challenge. Okay? But one of the things we've got to do is we've got to get more attention to that desired behavior. What might Terrell tell me? Under her breath, go to hell. But I mean, but what might she say in reality?
There's nothing positive.
He doesn't do anything. I would love to praise him if he would just do something right. Right? What's the cool thing about being the teacher?
You can make the question.
Sorry. If I'm the teacher, can I determine what they do? I can decide what's going to happen. Can I set him up? I've actually had I had one kid one time who I had no idea what his knowledge skill was. He was so out of it. He just didn't respond. Okay, and so it became a situation where one thing we do know, you guys aren't wearing your name tags. Heather. Heather is an incredibly bright young lady. One of the best students in the classroom. I ask Heather a question. Heather answers that question. Roland hardly talks. I got no idea what Roland knows. I had one kid where the only thing I could start off with was I'd ask Heather a question, Heather would answer, and I would go, Roland, do you agree? What does Roland have to know about the subject? Not a damn thing. What does he have to know? Heather's a good horse to put your wagon with. Okay? So all things being equal, always agree with Heather. Okay? Right. You guys are both right. Good job. What did Roland just get? Praise for an academic behavior that he had no clue of. Okay? Now, I'm not going to keep doing that forever, but for a while, all of a sudden, he's getting a whole bunch of new information. That is that I'm doing something that somebody says is pretty cool and competent. Do most kids want to be competent? Yeah. Then I can start getting a sense of maybe I'm going to give him a pretty low ball kind of a question to see if he can give it on his own. And when he does, I can praise him, and I start to build his willingness to participate in the classroom. I can get all that just by watching this one piece of data. I get at least some suggestions. Now, if I find my second piece kind of supports that, and my third piece supports that, I begin to build an idea. But I've got to get the teacher on board, and so if I can show it to her, if I can show it to him, here's what's going on. Here's what we want it to look like. Here's when he's doing well. When you're doing these kind of things, wow, he's with you. When you're doing this kind of stuff, he's gone. Let's do more of the stuff he does when he's well. All right? Teachers also want to look competent. One of the things that you'll have to realize is that when you're done doing an FBA, if I've got a resistive teacher, when you're done doing the FBA on the child, you begin your FBA on your teacher. Same principles. What's the function of the behavior of the teacher not trying? What's the function of the behavior in terms of what's going on? What am I going to have to do to shift this? And in many cases, the first thing I've got to do is I've got to help the teacher understand what is going on and that they too can be competent. Questions, comments?
Would it also be worthwhile to spend a little time...
Stand up and be real loud.
Would it also be worthwhile to spend a little time looking at their academic history too, to see if you could even just help with suggesting a tutor or something like that to make to try to help that way too? I know initially you should try this because that's going to take longer to see the effects of any tutoring on their knowledge base.
All right. So the question is, should we do any tutoring or something else like that? What would be one of my questions that would suggest tutoring would be the thing to do? What would be the function of the behavior that would suggest tutoring as the behavior intervention plan of choice?
If it's for attention, then you want to.
Okay. If it's attention, would tutoring, all right, she said for attention. If it's would tutoring be a good answer for a child who wants attention, per se?
Whose attention?
So one-on-one, yeah.
Okay.
Peer attention, no.
There would have to be, certainly, to be reinforcing that, to be seeking adult attention, which is not the goal of most children.
Okay. So one of it is an adult, and is it a specific adult? The second thing is that if I give them the attention of the tutor, where will they probably behave? With the tutor. It probably will have very little impact in the environment where they're not getting the attention they want, just because they can get attention later in terms of what's going on. Let's say I make it contingent, and even then there's a question. If I'm giving a tutor, usually you give a tutor for a skill or knowledge deficit. All right? If I've got a student who is escaping, let's say instead of attention, we decide the function of this was escape or avoidance. And that's based on anytime you get escape and avoidance, especially if it's escape, I've got to ask myself as a student, escaping to or from? All right? If they're escaping from, what are they escaping from? Is it the content? Is it the fact that I've got a student right now that has come to me in tears because they have to present a behavior intervention plan that they've been working on all semester to the class, and she is scared to death of standing up in front of her peers and giving this plan. Okay, so we're going to try to work out some way that she can do it. And the nice thing is our classes are at night, so we can turn the lights out and she can do it in the dark. What is it that they're escaping from? So if that were the case, I might want to say that. A lot of times, again, just like we might say, what are kids like? Sometimes we just start piling a bunch of stuff in the intervention plan because it's good stuff. Hell, let's put a little tutoring in there. Why? Because tutoring's good. All right? And let's put a little of this. Why? Because that's good. All right? And sometimes, I don't know, have you seen IEPs where especially if you get an IEP where the accommodations are checked on boxes? And you'll get this IEP and there's 23 boxes and 21 of them are checked. And but the team sat down and said, well, would you do better with more time? Yeah, more time would be good. All right? How about if we read them? Yeah, let's read the material to him because that would be nice. Okay? All of these would be nice for all of us. Does the kid need it to be on a level playing field? No. Then it's not an accommodation. All right? Would this be a nice thing? Yes. Would most kids do a little bit better with a little tutoring? All right? Now, I might have to jump, and then we'll take a break. I might have to jump start him. Let's say I think it's for attention, whatever's going on. One of the things I want to do is I want him to become competent in the skill so that he can be somebody I can call on, get the answer. I might do a little pre-teaching with this kid. So that we're going to talk a little bit about the Civil War, and you're going to do something so that when we do the Civil War in class, I know you've got the content. And I might ask you the very first question because I want to get at the low-hanging fruit that you'll remember something we talked about in that pre-teaching. Okay? And so I'm putting that in, but I'm putting that in as a way that I can begin to foster the attention. So we'll spend this afternoon talking about the behavior intervention plans. Let's take a break. When we come back, I'm going to have you change your packet, the order of the packet, because I didn't realize until I looked at it that I didn't give Sherry any indication at all of how to put this together. I just sent her a bunch of PowerPoints, or a bunch of files. So let's take a break for about, say, 15 minutes. Get up, stretch, find a bathroom, across the hall, down that way.